The invitation arrived 3 days after Lord Harrowmere was buried. There was no seal, no servant, and no carriage waiting beyond the iron gate. The envelope simply appeared beneath the pianist's apartment door sometime between midnight and dawn. The handwriting belonged to a dead man. The pianist had met Lord Harrowmere only once, years earlier, after a winter concert. The old nobleman had shaken his hand, praised his restraint, and asked a peculiar question. Can an audience be made to witness the impossible without understanding what it has seen? At the time, the pianist had answered with a smile. An audience understands whatever the performer teaches it to understand. Now the same hand had written, "Come to Harrowmere House on the 17th night. Play the waltz exactly as written. Begin the tricks when the applause starts. And whatever happens, do not let the woman in grey applaud." The pianist read the letter twice. Then he placed it beside the candle flame. The paper did not burn. It merely grew warm, as though remembering the hand that had written upon it. So he accepted the invitation. Harrowmere House stood above the river, its windows glowing like rows of half-closed eyes. Officially, the evening was a memorial ball held by Lady Harrowmere in honor of her late husband. No one spoke of mourning. The chandeliers were fully lit, the champagne flowed freely, and the guests wore enough silk and gold to make grief appear unfashionable. The pianist was placed beside the marble dance floor. He wore black evening tails, a white waistcoat, white gloves, and a silk top hat that made him appear equally suited to a concert hall or an execution. At 11, he began the waltz. The melody was gentle. Ladies turned beneath crystal light. Gentlemen counted the rhythm beneath their breath. Candle flames bent whenever the dancers passed, although there was no wind inside the room. During the second movement, the pianist noticed the woman in grey. She stood alone beneath the upper gallery. Her gown belonged to an older fashion than anything else in the ballroom. Its sleeves were narrow, its silver embroidery darkened with age, and no jewels rested at her throat. She watched the pianist without smiling. He looked toward the guest list positioned beside the piano. There was no woman dressed in grey. When he glanced back, she had moved closer. No one appeared to notice. The final chord rang through the ballroom shortly before midnight. The dancers stopped. For one breath, the entire house became silent. Then applause rose around him. The pianist stood, removed his hat, and bowed. That was when the real work began. He showed the guests his empty right glove. The deep red rose unfolded from the center of his palm, petal by petal, as naturally as if it had grown there all spring. The audience laughed with delight. Next came the cards. One turned red, then black, then blank, while floating beyond the reach of his fingers. Another folded itself into the shape of a small white bird before flattening again. The applause grew louder. He passed a silver coin through an untouched champagne glass. A moment later, the same coin struck the locked window ledge on the 3rd floor. Several guests looked upward. Then they laughed again. Hidden wires, someone whispered. An accomplice upstairs, another decided. Every explanation was wrong, but each explanation protected them from the truth. Only the woman in grey remained silent. She stood at the edge of the crowd, her hands resting motionless against her dress. The pianist finally understood why the letter had warned him about her. Everyone else was helping him turn the impossible into entertainment. She was the only person refusing to participate. Between 2 rounds of applause, the woman approached him. "You should stop," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it seemed to reach him without passing through the air. The pianist continued smiling for the audience. Most critics wait until the performance is over. I am not a critic. No, he replied. You are not on the guest list either. Her expression changed for the first time. Behind her, the guests were examining the rows and arguing about concealed compartments inside his gloves. My name is Helena Harrowmere, she said. The pianist knew that name. Helena had been Lord Harrowmere's younger sister. 27 years earlier, she had vanished during a winter ball inside this same house. No body had been found. No ransom had been demanded. The newspapers eventually claimed that she had fled abroad with a lover. The pianist looked at the woman's grey gown. It was the same dress she had worn in the final portrait painted before her disappearance. My brother spent his life trying to open that door again. Helena said, he believed someone could bring me back. Why did he warn me not to let you applaud? Because this house does not imprison flesh. She looked toward the eastern wall. It imprisons explanations.
The pianist raised one finger. Every candle in the ballroom went out. Several guests screamed, but the darkness lasted less than a second. When the flames returned, they ignited in sequence from west to east, one row at a time, guiding every eye towards a locked wooden door beneath the gallery. The door opened by itself. Beyond it lay a corridor far longer than the dimensions of Harrowmere House could contain. Its floor was black and white marble. Its walls were lined with portraits whose faces had been scratched away. Candle stands continued into the distance until their flames appeared smaller than stars. The guests leaned forward. Someone whispered that the use of mirrors was extraordinary. Someone else began applauding before the trick had even finished. The corridor responded. Its candles grew brighter. Its walls widened. The more confidently the audience called it an illusion, the more solid the impossible passage became. This is how it took me, Helena said. During the last ball, the door opened. Everyone believed it was part of the evening's entertainment. And you. I entered because I heard someone calling from inside. Who? My own voice. The pianist looked down the corridor. Far in the distance, something wearing his shape stood beneath the final candle. It lifted one hand before he did.
Helena explained that the corridor could release a prisoner, only if another witness took their place. Not a body, not a soul, a witness. Something capable of seeing the impossible and preserving it without explanation. Her brother had tried servants, animals, cameras, and mirrors. The servants went mad. The animals refused to cross the threshold. Every photograph developed as an empty black rectangle. Only mirrors could hold the corridor's image. But each mirror shattered before Helena could leave. You brought me here to exchange places with you. The pianist said, no. For the first time, fear entered her voice. My brother brought you because he believed you might find another answer. Behind them, the audience clapped for the endless corridor. The passage continued widening. Figures had begun appearing between the distant candles, motionless guests wearing clothes from different decades. Some had no faces. Others wore faces that appeared borrowed from people inside the ballroom. The house was preparing to take more witnesses. If they become afraid, Helena said, they will recognize the corridor as real, and then it will no longer need the door. The pianist understood. He had only minutes to close it. But if he closed the corridor in the usual way, Helena would remain trapped. The pianist stepped into the center of the ballroom and raised his hat. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, you have been exceptionally generous. The guests fell silent. For the final illusion, I will require the assistance of the lady in gray. Every face turned toward Helena. Only then did most of the guests realize she was present. Some assumed she had been hidden inside the house. Others believed she was an actress hired for the performance. The pianist offered her his hand. She hesitated before taking it. Together, they stood before the impossible door. At his gesture, every mirror in the ballroom turned toward them. Dozens of reflected Hellenias filled the gilded walls. But the pianist's reflection was missing. He had removed it moments earlier, during the darkness between the candles. It now rested inside his top hat. Not as a face, but as a surface of moving silver. The image of a man who copied every gesture half a heartbeat too late. The corridor recognized it. The distant figure, wearing the pianist's shape, stepped forward. The mirrors trembled. "What are you giving it?" Helena whispered. "The one witness who has followed every performance I have ever given." He placed the hat beyond the threshold. His reflection climbed out. It stood inside the corridor, adjusted its white gloves and bowed to the ballroom. The audience erupted in applause. The corridor accepted the exchange. Helena was thrown forward into the pianist's arms as the door slammed shut behind her. The guests surrounded them immediately. They praised the hidden corridor, the disappearing reflection, and the unexpected appearance of the mysterious assistant. Lady Harrowmere stared at Helena for several long seconds. A dead woman stood before her wearing a dress from 27 years ago. Yet the hostess only pressed one hand to her mouth and whispered, "The resemblance is extraordinary." Helena looked at the pianist. He shook his head slightly. "Not here." Not while the room was still deciding what it had witnessed. So Helena curtsied. The audience applauded again. By morning, every newspaper in the city carried an account of the performance. None mentioned a supernatural corridor. None mentioned the return of Lord Harrowmere's missing sister. They praised only the finest illusion performed during the social season. The pianist left the mansion shortly before dawn. Helena followed him to the front steps. In the gray morning light, she held out the silver coin that had appeared on the locked window ledge. "You knew this would happen," she said. "I suspected. Will your reflection ever return?" He looked toward the dark carriage window. It showed Helena, the house, the pale sky, and the empty street. It did not show him. "The room required a witness," he said. "I gave it the one that always followed me. And if it finds its way back," the pianist placed the silk hat upon his head, "then the next performance will require a larger audience." He entered the carriage. As it moved away from Harrowmere House, every window along the upper floor reflected the dawn. Except one. In that glass, a man wearing white gloves stood inside an endless corridor and bowed.